in our Ask a Chief of Staff community, what I'll say is we get very excited, and our community members know this, when we have Lawrence and Taylor here today. So Lawrence and Taylor, without further ado, I just wanted to give the biggest welcome, our Ask a Chief of Staff partners, also the most wonderful founders of Ambient, Taylor McLoughlin and Lawrence Coburn.
So today, I think we're just going to kind of do dueling DJ. Taylor and I are going to go back and forth with some of our favorite tools, and we're going to show a couple of things that Ambient is working on, but we're mostly going to show tools built by other people that we have very little connection to or no connection. So some of the tools that we're going to show today, we're going to stay focused, like everything we do, like our world is chief of staff. So if you don't know, Taylor and I, we are the co-founders of Ambient. We are building a purpose-built AI assistant for the office of the CEO. 90% of our contact with customers is through the chief of staff role. We've done 400 interviews with chiefs of staff. And so the workflows that we're going to focus on today are chief of staff workflows. So things like rhythm of business, things like strategic projects, things like offsites, board meetings, so all the stuff that you all probably have in your day-to-day. And we're going to show a couple of tools today. So I mentioned we're going to bookend some Ambient stuff, but we're also going to show a couple of email-facing tools. So Superhuman is one that we're going to show. We're going to show Fixer. We're going to show a cool tool that we use for data enrichment called Clay. We're going to show Granola that is doing some interesting and aggressive things on sort of the meeting assistant side. And if there's time, we're going to show Replit, which is a little bit more of a technical kind of the ability to write apps using English as a programming language. And then hopefully we may even show some more Notebook LM stuff. Okay, so we got a lot to cover. So I think I'm going to kick us off, and I'm going to start off with something that we're working on at Ambient. And we call this sort of our rhythm of business answer. And so let me cue this up. I know many of the chiefs of staff on the line today are responsible for managing the operating cadence of their companies. What does this mean? This means running the executive staff meeting. This means running kind of board preparation. This means organizing the offsites, managing potentially the executive one-on-ones. And so I think many of you are managing this process in a Google Doc or a OneNote, a never-ending document that keeps track of next steps and agendas. And so we're going to show you the AI version of that. This is a little known about feature within Ambient. So I'm going to go into my Ambient instance, and I'm going to pull up my meeting series. And so if you connect your calendar to Ambient, we can automatically detect each of your recurring meetings, and we can essentially build out a cheat sheet. So as we think about kind of rhythm of business recurring meetings, it always starts with the pre-work. It moves on to the work that happens during the meeting. And then, of course, you get to the follow-ups. So the first thing I'll say about Ambient's rhythm of business product is that every time I have a recurring meeting, I am getting a prep note delivered to me via email. And so this is our exec staff meeting. This is our daily stand-up for our team. So every morning, I get something that looks like this. It gives a recap of the previous meeting. It gives an overview of the top topics, and then it gives a list of the open action items. So this is sort of like jog my memory. How can we make the best use of this time? Now, if I go back into Ambient, I see a list of my recurring meetings. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my exec staff meeting. And so this is that one-page cheat sheet for everything I need to know about this recurring meeting. It does a couple things. First, all of the archive of the meetings in this series are captured, so they're all in one place automatically. We give you a filtered list of all of the open action items from this meeting series. So we never drop any balls. Why don't we drop balls? Well, because they're all captured for us. So we'll go right through the open action items. We give you some AI analysis of the big topics kicking around. So this is sort of a living, breathing AI snapshot of the big topics, and you can see what they are for us. Like it's financing, it's strategic planning, it's pricing strategy, these sorts of things. But probably the most interesting thing we do is we spin up a private vector database that you can interact with this meeting series. And so you can do things like just ask questions like, what were some of oh, my Zoom keeps taking over my screen here. Taylor's big points yesterday. And so just like you're interacting with ChatGPT, you can do that with your private and business data in a secure way. And so you can start to kind of like have perfect recall of any detail. Okay. So Taylor's reviewing a couple things around positioning, also about a client call. Other things I can do here is I can start to customize and automate my workflows. So one thing that is helpful with a recurring meeting is the ability to build an agenda for the next one. So we've had these saved prompts that you can kind of interact with and automate some of your key workflows. Okay, so I have one of these set up for every one of my recurring meetings. So when I have one-on-ones with investors or I have one-on-ones with teammates, I always have this ability to kind of go in, I get the pre-read, I'm able to automatically capture all the notes, I'm able to generate the post-meeting follow-up, the summaries, the action items, and we're able to sort of execute better, have a perfect memory, yeah, do all those things that you used to do in your OneNote, in your Google Docs. We automate all of that. All you have to do is connect your calendar. Okay, so that's rhythm of business. This is the underpinning of meetings that kind of drive your operating cadence. Let's keep moving. Let me turn it over to Taylor, and we're going to move into some email tools.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. Let me get my screen share going here. So the next tool we're going to show is Superhuman. You might have heard of it. They came out, I think, in 2014 with the goal to help you get through your inbox twice as fast. So it's all about speed and efficiency. It's taken me a while to really understand what that looks like. And the big observation I've taken away from this tool and many of the tools we're using and the tools I'm sure you're using as well is it's challenging the way you might have considered doing these workflows before. Email is a complicated workflow. We all have our own preferences. We all have our own ways of using things. If you're the mark it unread to keep it in your feed kind of person like I am, like your inbox is chaos. And there's all these different ways to do it. And I got lucky enough to speak to the first product designer at Superhuman to get an inside story on how they thought about the design. And she said it really succinctly, which is they tried to take complex workflows, condense it down into simple user experiences. So what I'm going to show you with Superhuman is how they infuse their philosophy of how to get through and manage your inbox. And now that they've kind of got that core workflow built out, how they're starting to layer in more generative AI to, again, you get your emails faster. And so one of the key concepts with Superhuman is this concept of a split inbox. And they give you a few of these default splits. You might have seen the same kinds of concepts in Outlook and Gmail, but these splits are really smart. They're really smart at detecting what looks like an update email, what looks like a newsletter, what's clearly a calendar invite. And what's cool is you can create your own splits. So I have a split here for support, and I get all of our customer support inquiries, which come through our support tool called Intercom. So I can define and control which emails go where. So that's number one, is helping kind of take the long list of emails and start to put them into sensible places for me to process. The next thing is Superhuman's very big on keyboard shortcuts. You hit Command K and you have so many different ways to kind of interact and get through your inbox. So I'm going to show you a couple examples here. So I'm in my VIP inbox. This is basically anything with my team. I'm going to mark that one done. I don't need to read it. I'm going to hit enter to view this. Okay, this is about our upcoming webinar. Cool. So now I'm done. And their goal is to get you to what they call inbox 0. And they reward you with these nice little images. Now let me tab over to my next one here. So support inquiry. I got to respond to this, but right now is not the time. I'm going to hit this shortcut, just the letter H, and I can say tomorrow morning, I'm going to get my reminder. So they're combining a lot of the same features, functionality that exists in Gmail and Outlook, but those products haven't really made that functionality easy and fun to use. I'll show you one more thing here. So I'm going to take a few of these emails. I'm going to highlight them all at once. I'm going to do later today at 4. Later today at 2. So I can kind of more precisely tell it when I want to be reminded of it, and it's going to bring it back to me. Now let's dive into what these emails look like. And this is actually going to flow into another use case around board prep that we'll get into later in the event. And this is a fictitious email thread, so nothing in here is actually real. Sorry, Lawrence, to hope I didn't surprise you by adding some more headcount to the team. So we've got a long email exchange, and the use case here is, okay, I'm involved. I'm helping to kind of get the updates from our various leadership, and I need to take some actions here. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to start to write out, okay, thanks. We'll come up with deck outline. Now I could send that. It's pretty curt and short, and I could spend some more time here really working up a better version of this. But if I hit the shortcut Command J, this brings up their AI drafting tools. And so they give you a few kind of shortcuts if you want to make something longer, shorter, simpler, fix the spelling and grammar, or just improve it. So let's see what happens. Okay, so it turned it into a little bit nicer phrasing. Let's add some fun emojis. So you can actually go back and forth and kind of exchange with Superhuman to kind of refine the email that you want to write. Great, let's add that I'll create and share a pre-read. Cool. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to hit Command Enter, and it's going to send. And so this is starting to accelerate my processing of emails. I can come back to the top here. I'm going to dismiss this. And then back to inbox 0. And so this is a really, really powerful tool. They have tools built in for sales use cases. There's collaboration as well. Let me actually show you what that looks like. So I can actually go in here and mention Lawrence and say, hey, did you see my update? And it's not going to be an email. It's going to go to him within Superhuman, and it's our way to start to collaborate around email. This is a completely new capability that Gmail and Outlook, I don't believe, support. So again, there are these little paper cuts in our day, and I think email is one of them, and it can eat up a lot of our time. And you can see how Superhuman's design, user experience, philosophy around how to process email helps you get through it much, much faster. And with the AI tools, I've been really enjoying that help with helping to draft and craft those emails. Cool. I'm going to pass it back to you, Lawrence.
Nice. And why don't we stay in the thread of email? I'm going to show you another tool called Fixer. And one thing I'll say about Superhuman is they know exactly who they want to be. Their word is speed. It's velocity. So what they do is they make the experience of managing your email really fast. So if you're looking for that with kind of AI injected through all the key email workflows, Superhuman is a great option. Okay, and so I'm going to show another approach to tackling email with AI. And I'm going to do the always exciting share my inbox. And so I'm going to show a tool called Fixer. Now, what's interesting about Fixer is that they work with your existing email inbox. And I'm actually a Superhuman user. I used to be a Fixer user, and I switched over to Superhuman. So what Fixer does is their core kind of value add is that they use AI to automatically categorize the emails coming in. So you can think about it almost like an AI librarian. And so you can see I have these little filter tags, FYI, notification. They create 8 buckets: to respond, FYI, comment, notification, meeting update, which is all your like Google Calendar kind of notifications, awaiting reply, the ones that have already been actioned, and then marketing stuff. And of course, if they get something wrong, it's a problem. So I've had important stuff show up in marketing that I've had to go dig for, which is not ideal. But the most useful thing that they do is that they create this bucket called to respond. And so if you get a lot of email like I do, it can be really helpful to have one place to go, and you have this librarian say, these are the things that you need to get back to. And so I'll give you an example. I did a call with this kind of new grad from Emory who asked me for some kind of mentorship. And so very simple thing, he sent me an email. What Fixer does is they give you 2 options. It's a little clunky, So what you have to do is kind of delete kind of the option that you don't want, and then just hit send. And so let me see if I can come up with a more in-depth example here of a longer email. And so let me do this one. So someone's sending me a sponsorship offer. So this is Fixer using AI to draft a response. And one response is, yes, I'm interested. The second response is, no, I'm not interested. So I had to do some kind of editing to get it ready to go. And so with Fixer, I think the value is that it works with your existing inbox, at least Gmail. It does a pretty good job of categorizing all of the emails that are coming through to you. It does a particularly with the ones that you have to respond to. And I found that they've done a good job of grabbing just the most important emails. Initially, I really liked the AI responses, but now I'm finding that they are not quite nuanced enough. So I'm almost finding the kind of option one, option two, a little bit distracting. And so, yeah, so I think immediate value in terms of time savings, categorization. If you have a big noisy inbox, it can certainly help. Now, the other sort of kind of like, I'll give you one more little buyer beware thing with some of these consumer tools. So Superhuman is enterprise grade, focus on executives. I don't think this doesn't apply to them. But for some of the tools that we're going to show today, these are consumer tools. They're not built to serve the enterprise. Several of them are not SOC 2 compliant. With Fixer, one of the reasons we had to move off Fixer is that they're building a meeting assistant that we were having a very hard time having it not show up. Like we would turn off the control, it would show up anyway. And so you just have to be careful. I think for experimentation, it's good to see what these aggressive consumer tools are doing. For enterprise, use it in your office. You have to be a little bit more measured. Okay, so we looked at two approaches to email. One, a whole new client with new controls, new shortcuts, all built around speed, and then Fixer built into your existing email workflows with a focus on AI librarian, categorization of emails, and then drafting emails to save you time. All right, let's keep it rolling.
Nice.
Taylor, back over to you.
Cool. I'm going to shift gears into a tool that's really built for a specific team. It's the go-to-market side of the house. Now, if you've ever had that experience where GTM, RevOps needs help, they need somebody to jump in and add some horsepower, it's really good to know what tools exist on that side of the house, because that's obviously an important part of driving the business forward. So the tool I'm going to show today is called Clay. You may have heard of it. They're a high-flying AI company. I think they've already raised their Series B, and they raised these rounds, I think, within a year or two. So very fast growth, and you'll see why. The product is incredibly simple to set up, but you can add a lot of complexity and integrations with it to power other systems like CRM, like Outreach. So this is their website, clay.com. I'm going to go right into the product. And so think of Clay as like a spreadsheet. That's the fundamental building block that they're working off of. But it's not a spreadsheet you would use to build a financial model. It's not a spreadsheet you would use to come in and do any sort of calculations. This is a spreadsheet on steroids. It's like a database that you're actually able to interact with. And then more importantly, it interacts with other tools in your tool set. So I'll show you an example here. This is actually the meeting event URL for this webinar. And what's unique about Clay is you set up these columns, and these columns can be very simple columns that contain dates, currency, numbers, text. So typical spreadsheet stuff. But if I'm going to click Add Enrichment, I'm going to say, you know what, let me go for something like event. Summarize event landing page. And it's going to ask me, well, which column contains the event URLs? I'm going to hit apply. And now you'll see here, I have some options. Now, what this column does is it uses AI, and I have a choice of models. Clay's got some built-in models. You'll recognize OpenAI's got some models here, Anthropic as well. So if you've seen our other content, if you've seen some of our other webinars, you know that we like to showcase different foundation models. They're different for different use cases. And so it's good to know what exists to know when to use which model. I'm going to use this basic one 4.0 mini. So it's a smaller version of GPT-4. It's also cheaper to use. So you'll see these little token icons. The way Clay works is you buy these tokens, and depending on the workflow that you're automating and the sub tools that you're pulling in, things will cost more or less tokens. And then this is effectively the prompt. So I'm going to ask it to look at the event page in this column and summarize these key details. That sounds good. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit run. And so now it's actually processing the request. It's going to that website URL. It's running it through OpenAI's 4.0 mini to generate the summary that I asked it to. And so here are the results. The event title is Ask a Chief Staff AI in Action. The reason why it chose to include this. So really kind of powerful stuff here. Now, I wanted to show this just to show you what is kind of possible here with these columns. But let me get into a use case here. So maybe you have to start to help build out a lead list for a new segment for the go-to-market team. And finding contacts can be expensive. There are a lot of different providers to go to. And then more importantly, you have to think about how you're going to get these contacts into the systems that your selling team is going to be leveraging anyways, various CRMs and email flows. So from the top, I'm going to ask it to find me contacts. Let's say we're looking in the biotech space. So you have some basic firmographic information you can plug in here. Company size, etc. You can add exclusions. You can add domains for exclusions as well. So you're only pulling good contacts from companies that you haven't reached out to before. So this is kind of typical stuff you want to see in a RevOps tool. I'm going to limit this to, I don't know, 25 results. It's going to give me a preview. Up till now, this is costing me exactly 0 tokens. So they have a lot of free stuff in here. Basic profile is free. If you want to add some enrichment, that'll cost you a token per row. And you see there's other data brokers they build right into the product. This is one of the special things about Clay is they've effectively made it possible to tap into these other tools without you having to go create yet another account, sign up another vendor, go through that process. And so based on the degree of information and the quality, you'll obviously pay more, but it makes it easy to get. Let's add some enrichment to this. What I also like about this tool, and beware of AI tools that are consumption-based. So there's a few different business models out there. Consumption-based is a very popular model for AI tools. These tools are basically charging you for the work that they're doing. And so before I run this on 10,000 rows, which could cost me a lot of money, I like that Clay always tells me exactly what's going to happen next. So that's a really nice user experience. I feel confident it's going to do the thing you want it to do and not surprise you. Okay, cool. So now it got me the list. It's actually running an AI enrichment right now to get me the full-on contact or rather company page. And I've got a lot of other metadata here, which is really, really powerful. Now I'm going to round this demo out by doing one more thing here. And that is I'm going to find people at these companies. So I went from finding a list of companies. Maybe these are M&A targets. Maybe these are potential partners. Maybe these are for the sales side leads. I can go from company identification to now find me people at these companies. And I'm going to say, narrow it down a bit. Let's look for people in director level up. And then I'm going to limit this to 5 contacts per company. And again, it's generating me a preview of what it's going to produce before I ask it to. That looks good. Import into a new table. And again, I have a choice here. Do I want to add contact information? So again, saving my reps a ton of time on that research by doing it for them. Let's see what happens. Now it's creating a new column. It's creating a whole nother workbook, finding people related to specific companies. It's getting me the individual's LinkedIn profile, first name, last name, email should be coming as well. And you'll notice that there are actually 4 or 5 columns here for email. So it's actually looking across multiple providers to try to find me the best quality result. And it's doing a ton of research work. So this would typically fall on maybe an outsourced team. Maybe you're paying a lot of money for a data broker today, but maybe they don't have everything that you need. You certainly don't want your internal team spending a lot of time on this type of primary research and data enrichment. So Clay is a really powerful tool. The other thing I like about it is it's very flexible from a pricing perspective. You can just buy tranches of credits as you need it. So we ebb and flow with our usage, and I like tools to be able to do that as well. I think that's all I wanted to show on Clay.
Awesome. Why don't we show one more, and then we'll take a pause and go through some of the questions that are out there. So the next tool that I want to show is a product called Granola. And I saw a couple mentions of it in the comments. It's a very elegant, frictionless way to transcribe meetings and then kind of run AI analysis against those meetings. So I'm going to share my desktop. And so the first thing that I'll say is that I have been running Granola in the background, and let me get the right window up here. So you can see my Granola window up front here. And so I'm able to fill in my notes on Granola, and then what Granola will do after the call, it'll build those notes out. So they're very thoughtful about going after a workflow that people were used to doing, which is taking notes and then using AI to enrich those. But the more controversial thing that they're doing, and also very useful, is that they are transcribing this meeting in real time. And how many of you knew that I was using Granola on this call? I know the answer, nobody, because I did not ask for consent. And this is where things start to get a little bit tricky with Granola. So the way Granola was built is that it plugs into the system audio. It only works on Macs, not on PCs. It plugs directly into the system audio on your machine, and it captures the different audio streams. And so our CTO refers to this as like an internal wiretap. If it sounds a little bit, if it sounds a little bit stressful, it should. Transcribing people without permission is illegal in California, Pennsylvania, a number of other states. But what you get with Granola is you get this really elegant, low friction way. If you got to have the notes and you don't want to miss out on the learnings, you can run Granola. You should ask for permission, but you might not. And so that's the first thing I'll say about Granola. Now, what's cool about Granola is that Granola works very well with Ambient, for example. So one thing that I can do with my Granola transcript is I can forward it to Ambient's email alias. And I'll give you a quick example of why I would want to do that. So you're looking at the feed of all of kind of the meetings and email threads that are happening around our company. And so this is a meeting that I can't remember.
Lawrence, you need to switch the view. Sorry to interrupt you. I can only see Granola right now.
Let me get on the right view here. Thanks for that, Taylor. And so this is a feed of all the things happening around Ambient, sort of like our knowledge base. And this is a meeting that I ran Granola at, maybe as a demo. I can't remember exactly why. And it generates me an artifact, an Ambient artifact. Why is that important? Because I can do things like I can put that Granola recording into an Ambient project. This is our financing project. And then I can run analysis against that whole set of meetings. And so meetings that might be coming from Zoom, they might be coming from Teams, they might be coming from Granola, they might be coming from Ambient. But this is where kind of AI note-taking starts to get a little more strategic, is when you start to compile all of these summaries into projects that map to your key initiatives. And it allows you to do kind of almost like research against all this knowledge and wisdom that's lying in your meetings. So I'll end with a couple of more comments about Granola. It is a beautiful tool, very elegantly designed. I would just be a little bit careful about using it in a work setting, because I'll give you an example. We're talking to an enterprise opportunity right now. They really like Granola, but the head of IT was just not comfortable with the trouble that Granola could get their company into. So I think there's a lot to learn from these some of these user experiences, innovations that's happening on the consumer tools, but just be very careful about bringing them back to work. Let me say one more thing about kind of real-time capture of audio and some legitimate use cases for that. So many of us are in virtual meetings, but we're also in in-person meetings. And there's a number of tools that you can kind of download on your phone. You can use the native recording functionality of your iPhone or Android to capture meetings. You can do basic transcription. You can forward that to a processor or an insights company like Ambient. And so there's another company called Wave that does a really good job of this. You open the Wave app, you put it on the table in your conference room. So this is another version of recording via hardware. The difference between what Granola does, which is they tap into system audio, these in-person meeting services are tapping into the microphone. And that's a little bit of a different thing. It's not that internal wiretap that we talked about. So we see an obligation as a vendor to enable you all to capture all of the context that you need to capture in order to unleash AI to help you run your business. And so many of the questions that I see in the chat right now are about, do I need to record this meeting? Well, what does record mean? How about real-time transcription? Does that count as recording? Well, the state of California thinks it does. So the key thing with AI is that you have to give AI the business context. And this is one of the most stressful things. You have to change behaviors. You have to be comfortable with sharing private, confidential business data with your AI vendor. And of course, put them through the paces, like check their SOC 2 documentation. Make sure you understand, are they private by default, or are their sharing settings by default going to share your data amongst your company or outside of your company? So, but this is probably the single biggest obstacle that we are seeing companies face, is this behavioral hurdle of, do we trust these vendors? Do we trust these models to see our most private and strategic data? The companies that we like, and we see a cutoff, like somewhere around 1,000 employees, companies start to be in the grips of their general counsel, for better or for worse, right? Like their job is to prevent disaster down the road. Younger companies also worry about those things, but they're more worried about not winning. So this is where we see the cutoff in the market, but we're starting to see things change. We're starting to see even bigger companies say, we can't sit on the sidelines any longer. So this is all kind of a jumping off from this very simple category of AI note-taking at meetings. There's different ways to do it. You can send an assistant in so everybody knows it's getting recorded, or you can use system audio tools like Granola. I think there's a lot to learn from both tactics, but just think about how are you getting that business context into your system. Okay, all right, that's a lot on Granola. All right, why don't we take a quick pause, and we've got some more tools, but why don't we go through some of the questions? Taylor, do you want to choose like one of your favorite ones?
Yeah, can go through questions. Also, if you want to come off mute and ask it live, that'd be even better.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'll jump in. You mentioned this earlier as well. False positives, false negatives. So look, getting those emails and losing the emails you want and getting flooded with emails you don't want. I guess there's a quality check. So what do you think of the current quality level of those email management tools?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start off on this, but I'm a believer, and I'm seeing this from under the hood at Ambient. Like every day, every week, the foundation models are getting better. We're seeing fewer hallucinations. We're seeing fewer mistakes. And you have to believe that this is the future. So the time is now to sort of get your arms around the tool. That being said, we have not yet left the era of human in the loop. And particularly chiefs of staff, your job at your company is to be the human in the loop. Like you are the one to make sure that exceptions don't put you on the wrong course. It's a lot of pressure to carry. So yeah, my perspective on this is that trust the tools, but you got to be double checking, right? You got to be double checking each of those folders. And if they lose trust with you, they're sending a message to you that we're not quite ready for prime time. And we've definitely kicked a few tools to the curb, particularly on the calendar side. Like I have not yet seen a calendaring AI native tool that has been able to convince me that this is better than the old manual way. And so I'm very open-minded. I spend a lot of time on calendar, but I just haven't seen anything of the quality of Superhuman or even Fixer yet on the calendar side. Taylor, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, on the accuracy thing, I think I agree, Lawrence, on human in the loop. I think a big jump off point for all of us as I take a step back as a active participant in this wave. We're a tiny little company amongst many out there. Is I'm in tune with the behavior sets and the behavior changes. 10 months ago, having a meeting recorded and a bot joining might have been an issue, but we've seen that change. But you also see other companies like Granola coming in and trying to get past that initial behavior hurdle by not even telling you that it's there. And like it's a bit of a workaround. It, devil's in the details on how it works and your comfortability with that risk. When I think about email, the auto drafting is so attractive because even if it's not ready to hit send, and it's not, generally speaking, but if it gets me part of the way there, again, it's helping accelerate those follow-ups. And at some point, it's going to get me all the way to the point where I am ready to hit send without any changes, and maybe even some point where I'm okay with it actually sending on my behalf. I think that will be a big jump off point for all of us as we think about AI embedding itself into our day-to-day workflows. Is how much of our communications are we willing to have it just do for us? In many ways, this has already happened and played out with all of you. If you have delegate access to your principal's email, they trust you to more or less be that air traffic controller. So it's not far-fetched. It's not unheard of. But when will we be more comfortable with AI doing it? I think that's still got some time to bake there, but things to pay attention to. Yeah.
There's one best practice emerging on the vendor side, which is to use one model to cross-check the work of another model. So take an open source model like Llama and use that to check the work of a foundation model like one of OpenAI models. So that's something that we are looking at right now. We haven't implemented it yet, but we're hearing that as a best practice. So AI is checking the work of other AIs. Cool.
Great question.
Let's find another question or two here. Actually, someone speak up.
Hey, I have two quick questions. You mentioned that you haven't found a calendar tool yet that you like. I've been using one, and I'm kind of curious if this is one of them that you tried and rejected. It's called Reclaim AI. And then the second question was specific to Ambient. What LLM are you using on the back end? We could see some of the other tools you use, which you had the options, but I'm curious what you all chose to go with.
Great question. So Calendar, I think Taylor and I have both played around with Reclaim. We've played around with Clockwise. I think for me, what I wasn't comfortable with Reclaim is that they would move some of the meetings for me. And I know why they were doing that. They were trying to optimize, but it just, in a stressful, busy day, to have a meeting move on you, it would just throw me off my game a little bit. Taylor, any comments on Reclaim?
No, I think I felt the same way on that front. It's kind of back to like having email tools draft your emails and send it for you, like having it move my calendar meetings. I just wasn't there yet. But I know it's widely used by a lot of people too.
Yeah, we know a lot of people that are getting a lot of value out of Reclaim, and I'm gonna give it another shot. Yeah, someone's gonna crack Calendar. We just haven't seen it.
That's a nice subtle point too, Lawrence. I'll answer the other question made around LLMs. Is these products are like everyone is improving at breakneck speed, and it's hard to be on product engineering to figure out how do you stick to your roadmap, but also consider a new capability that just comes out. And so I would say be patient with tools that you're trying out. Give them another try in a few months. You might be surprised to see what's changed. On the LLM, so specifically, we run a series of different OpenAI models. So that's the main provider we stuck with from the get-go. Different tasks within our product use different models, and we use multi-pass processing for accuracy. We chose to go deep with OpenAI because we want to get really, really good at leveraging one kind of class of model, rather than trying to spread ourselves too thin and trying to stay on top of how each one's performing for its own task. Don't know if that's the right strategy. It's the one we chose. It's more about focus. Yeah.
And I'll give you one example of where we're not second guessing ourselves, but we may expand the models that we're built on. So we generate this pre-read. So anytime you see someone for a second time. So if I have another call with this group of people, I'm going to get a briefing email that says, like, this is what you spoke about last time. These were the big topics. These are any open action items. And so we really like this. Our customers love this because they're on a busy meeting day. They're getting these briefing documents of everything they need to know to get ready for their calls just automatically. They don't have to do anything. What we don't have this functionality for is if you have a call with someone for the first time. So if Carrie, Chase, and I have a call tomorrow, we've never spoken before, I would love to get a briefing document that looks at her LinkedIn profile, any public information about her, just so I can have a better, more informed call. We've been testing that workflow using the off-the-shelf models, and Claude does a better job than OpenAI. So we may end up using Perplexity models for some workflows as opposed to just one across the board. So I think it's the kind of thing you got to constantly be looking at. Cool. Let's do one more question, and then we can get back. Anyone have another question they'd like to ask?
I have a question. I wanted to know, so I've used Firefly and Otter, and when I look at the transcription, they're pretty close, but when they have something that's like a negative, like you told someone not to do something, it might miss that, and then that changes all the task and all the summary. That's what we kind of stopped using those. And then also I was told by my recruiter that when people know they're recorded, they're not like maybe as forthcoming as they would because they know they're seeing if you guys had that too.
Yeah, I mean, the second question is, I think that's the big question for the whole category of AI note taking is, does recording a call, whether they know it or not, and this is the case for granola, right? This is why granola is doing well, because that fear of change behaviors when people know they're being recorded. Or are we heading towards a world that's AI enriched, that everything is recorded, right? So it's a big philosophical question. The first part of your question is an interesting one. So I'm gonna pull one more example from Ambient, where with Ambient, Taylor and I had a call with a design agency today, and just like the AI note takers, we give you a nice tight summary of the call. We give you kind of access to the video, to the transcript. But where we start to differentiate a little bit is we let you customize your own prompts. And so we do this for different workflows, but if you are unhappy with the off-the-shelf summary, you can write a very specific prompt, and we will actually help you do that to get exactly the summary that you want. And so this is one of the things that we're finding, because we work with C-suites, everybody has a different lens that they want to look at their meeting data through. And the CEO, chief of staff lens is just different than the individual contributor lens. So the prompts have to reflect that. So the good news is there's lots of AI note takers out there. There's ones for certain industries. There's many in health, for example, in medical, that are where the prompts are optimized to know the library of terms in that industry. You can also do that yourself within Ambient, and I think it's a big differentiator. So if you don't like the summaries you're getting, see if you can customize the prompt that's under the hood.
And would you do that before the meeting or after the meeting?
Well, we do it in our onboarding for every one of our clients. But I would definitely recommend you set aside time to customize and find the workflows that you're doing over and over again. Write some high quality prompts. If you need somebody to help you, my guy Taylor here is the best that I know at it. And then once you set it up, you have a button that you can press. So there's a lot of time savings, and there's also kind of quality of output impact.
Thank you.
Great. So we get back to a couple more demos.
Yeah, let's do it. I think up next we have Replit. And so Taylor, do you want to lead us through Replit? This is a little bit of a depart.
Yeah, I was actually going to do the board deck.
Okay, yeah, let's do board deck
case.
first, and then we'll do Replit.
Cool.
All right.
I'm going to come back to that email thread of our fake exec leadership team getting ready for a Q1 board meeting. So I got a lot of context in email. And like Lawrence mentioned, the whole point with AI, especially if you're applying it within the leadership team, is the more context it has, the better quality job it can do. So I'm going to make sure Ambient knows about this email exchange by forwarding it to our alias. And what that does is it brings the email into Ambient We generate a artifact like Lawrence showed you, and now we have context. So I'm in a workspace. These are called projects. Projects are like AI-powered folders. And this is the project we have for our board deck that we're getting prepped for. And I gave it some context about what the goal is. Here's some key activities. And what we really want to do is build these projects based on your calendar, because you likely have that board meeting scheduled. We would love to be able to create that project, create a set of actions that build up to it, like a work back schedule. Leia, I know you're on the call. You gave us inspiration about that. And now I have a clear set of the prioritized things that need to get done. And I'm going to actually filter down to just the things that I know, the things that I have on my plate. So I need to generate a pre-read. So I mentioned that email thread that Superhuman helped me respond to, that I'll get a pre-read out to the team, as well as consolidate the feedback. And in this project, I have that email thread. Here's the summary. Here are the actions that we discussed in the email thread. I've also uploaded a PDF of our last board deck. So Ambient has an idea of what needs to go in it. It has an idea of what the last board deck looked like. Now I'm going to open up AI chat here. And like Lawrence said, I actually created a prompt called board prep, just a really simple one to get started. So I'm going to run that prompt. And now I'm chatting with both the email thread and all the context in it, as well as the deck that I uploaded. And you can add other content, other documents, other meetings. So I can get really precise about the context that I need to go into my workflows around getting prepped, creating a new outline. Okay, so here's a simple outline based on, again, content from the email plus the deck. Now I might want to get into that workflow of generating that briefing document. And this is actually a prompt that we create and default make available to all of our customers. So creating a briefing doc, building agendas, these are common workflows in your day-to-day. And it's similar to Superhuman, we want to give you tools to help accelerate those menial tasks. Cool, so I've got a nice briefing document outlined here. I'm going to copy it. I can also export this response as a PDF. I'm going to come back to that email exchange, and I'm going to reply back. Here's the briefing doc. And I might even ask Superhuman to clean this up a little and make it look nicer. So this is how I like to go between Ambient and Superhuman, as I bring context between the two places. We're going to probably find ways to make that even easier. I'm going to accept it. This looks pretty good. Clear actions. I'm going to hit send. So I'm in my workflow of putting these pieces together, kind of taking all the context. And imagine having a lot of one-on-ones with key executives. So you can add those in here as context as well. And now I'm able to go through my steps here. I'm going to mark that done. And consolidating themes down is done. So I'm starting to use that business context to, in this case, getting prepped for that board deck, building the outlines. We do stop short of actually getting you slides. We have not found a great AI slide building tool. We found some fun ones. Gamma is one of them. Building slides is a really hard task for AI. I think that's going to be one of the ones that's going to take a bit longer to get to, but I'm sure it will get there at some point. And I know that's a really time intensive aspect, but we want to start to kind of break down the many steps that are embedded in the workflows you have each day, each week, each month, each quarter, based on whatever that rhythm is, and start to figure out what can we take off your plate and what can you kind of focus on and shifting that time towards. And for me, it's okay, less time aggregating things and kind of summarizing it, more time looking at the story, crafting the story. Where do we have gaps in the story? These are the types of questions you really want to go deeper on, and this is going to provide higher quality content and alignment with your team.
Great. I'm going to flash one more, which is Notebook LM. So Taylor got me thinking on this concept of projects. And if you came to our last session, we showed an example of Notebook LM. So this is a tool built by Google. I use it for sort of non-private business data research projects. And I'll give you an example. So as you all know, at Ambient, we are very focused on rhythm of business. This is our sort of area of expertise. And we do a lot of ideation. We do a lot of public writing about this topic. And so the way Notebook LM works is you're basically compiling a context window. You're able to add documents, you're able to add links of websites, you're building the universe of knowledge that you want the AI to focus on. And so while we were sitting here, I just found another article from Forbes on Rhythm of Business. I'm going to copy that URL. I'm going to add a source. So I'll add a link to this website. I'll insert it. So that's including that knowledge as part of the context. And then I'm able to do things like, can you draft me a one-page blog post on the topic of rhythm of business targeting chiefs of staff? And so it's pulling from the artifacts, the different sources that I pointed it to, and it's generating something generic. If I had more time, I would give examples of my writing style and do a better job. And again, this is not generating an article that I would publish, but maybe it's getting me 50% of the way there. I'm also able to generate
a feeling like some companies are just
a podcast. So it literally creates AI speakers to create a podcast. So if you want to learn about a topic, drop a couple of articles into a Notebook LM notebook, generate the podcast and listen to it while you're on the treadmill or Peloton. So it's a great consumer tool for kind of moving quickly and learning about new things, generating articles, generating ideas. And we very much believe in that architecture, which is folder and artifacts running AI analysis on a set of context to get to the best outcomes. Okay, let's do questions for another minute or two, and then we can wrap things up. Any questions from folks out there?
Yeah, I have a question. Curious about interoperability with different task management softwares like ClickUp or Monday, with specifically with Ambient.
Yeah. So we have a couple things. We actually have a Zapier app. So if you're familiar with Zapier, it's a data integration tool and a no-code, low-code tool to connect different systems together so you can send data based on different events. So when a meeting is done in Ambient, we can create tasks in a specific ClickUp project based on your routing rules. So that's available today. And any tool that Zapier supports, which is pretty much everything out there, we support. But we actually think Zapier is still a little out of reach for some people. It can take a bit of time to learn, and we give you recipes, but we're building in more direct native integrations between our systems and other core systems, especially CRM and project tools.
Do you have plans for API documentation by any chance?
We have APIs. They're just not publicly available. But maybe Chris, we can pick up a thread separately. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you're thinking about that, because we've had a few people ask us for public access.
Thanks.
Cool.
Any other questions? All right, I think I'm going to wrap things up with a word from our sponsor, who is us. And so one thing that we're working on with our clients is something that we're calling a rhythm of business audit. And this is it's essentially a 2-week process where we will go in, interview some of your key leaders, help you visualize your rhythm of business, make some best practices recommendations, and then work with you to customize an ambient instance that will help you manage your rhythm of business. So the ROI here would be time savings, perfect recall of any detail, a knowledge base of all this interesting unstructured data that's sitting in your leadership meetings. But the bigger opportunity is start to unify this data source of all the wisdom that's in those meetings, and how can you put it to work for you? And the big work back that we're thinking of is the strategic planning process for 2026. Flash forward to November of 2025, where you are responsible for pulling together opportunities and threats, dropped initiatives. Wouldn't it be nice to have a knowledge base to work from? So as follow-up, we're going to send out a list of all the tools that we covered today, so you can play around with them yourself. I'm sorry we didn't have time for Replit. Replit is a way for people to use English as a programming language to build applications. Maybe we can do a follow-up on some of the more technical kind of AI assistant tools, things like Cursor and Replit. We'd be happy to do that. But yeah, thank you so much for the time on a Friday, and we'll send you some follow-ups. And thanks to Ask a Chief of Staff for having us today. Nia, back over to you.
Thanks, Lawrence. I hope you all had a wonderful time with us today. I know for myself, I was oogling at all the demos that Taylor and Lawrence shared. And so on that note, wishing you all a happy Friday. Thank you again, and be on the lookout for a follow-up email from all of us. Thanks, everyone. Bye.